Hello, world. Today is Thursday, May 29th, 2026. And this is a sideshow. I'm Theodore Parker, coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, on the East Coast of the United States. Today in this area, currently, the temperature is 68 degrees. And feels like 68. There is a special weather statement until Thursday, 9 a.m. We've been experiencing rain for the past several days. The weather forecast for today, morning clouds followed by afternoon sun, highs in the mid-80s and lows in the mid-50s. Grass and pollen increasing tomorrow. Conditions currently for running are good, for cycling are good, and for gardening are good. The AQI is good at 32. Pollen, tree, none. Grass, very high. Ragweed, none. Currently, the UV index is low. And there's a light breeze, 6 miles per hour. It does feel muggy. And today's sunrise was at 6:18 a.m. So the sun has been up almost an hour now. Sunset at 8:52 p.m. So that's the weather conditions in this area. I came on the show today because we're close, a couple of months away from celebrating 250 years of America in this country. And there were a few things that were kind of gnawing at me, tossing around in my mind. And the past several programs, I've just kind of limited my conversation and the things that I shared to what's going on in this country. And I know I say hello world. And I thought today I would bring out what's going on around the world. But before I get into that, I wanted to kind of set the stage for the facts and events that I'm about to relay to you. So historically, this country has been through a lot. And now we have Donald Trump as president. As I look back, there are some things that kind of stand out, with this administration, particularly when something that Donald Trump does, there are some people that say, well, he can't do that. But the fact is, before they can finish the sentence almost, when you look, you find out that he has done it. And what kind of opened my eyes was when he demolished the East Wing of the White House. Say what you may, the East Wing of the White House is gone. Another thing that keeps popping up in my mind is that, and this is from the 90s, that his wife at the time said he had a copy of Hitler's speeches on the nightstand. And we all know what the pages of history says about Hitler's time in power in Germany and what effect it had on the German people and the Jewish people, German people in general, and the Jewish people specifically, to the point that Jews have vowed that they would not allow anything like that to happen to them again. As a black man in America, in the same 250 years, as a people, we have a history of slavery. And we empathize with that feeling of not letting that happen to us again. So when you speak about the world stage, there are organizations that are recognized around the world, particularly through the UN, that Donald Trump has withdrawn the United States from. And so I thought I would start with that. and kind of give you a tone as to how this is going to go. So since Donald Trump has been in office, President Donald Trump has initiated withdrawal of the United States from dozens of UN-affiliated agencies and international bodies. And this is referencing to the point, how did we get to where we are now as a country? Speaking of the United States. President Donald Trump has initiated withdrawal of the United States from dozens of UN-affiliated agencies and international bodies, citing American sovereignty and economic interest. These exit and funding halt orders target 66 global groups with a heavy focus on the UN. Prominent UN and UN-related organizations impacted by these withdrawals include major health and human rights bodies, World Health Organization. The administration initiated the withdrawal process. UN Human Rights Council withdrew participation and halted funding. UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, prohibited future funding for the agency. United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Trump initiated withdrawals for this organization in both of his presidential terms. Climate and environmental treaties, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the main UN body for global climate negotiations. Paris Climate Agreement, halted U.S. participation and funding. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UN body for assessing the science related to climate change. International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the global authority on the status of the natural world. It continues. Social, economic, and specialized agencies, United Nations Population Fund, the UN Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, UN Women, the UN entity dedicated to gender equality and the empowerment of women, UN Conference on Trade and Development, a permanent intergovernmental body dealing with trade, investment, and development issues. Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence in Conflict, a specific UN diplomatic mandate focusing on conflict-related sexual violence. So that's just a list in general of the 66 global groups that Trump has withdrawn the United States from. So when we look at the status of the world presently, you might see where those decisions may have had an influence. The next thing, the war with Iran. We kind of partnered as a country with Israel, but it's kind of like a trail of breadcrumbs in this sense that Syria has often attacked Israel based on matters of religion, speaking of Islam or Muslim people being involved. And by extrapolation, that would include most of the Islamic community of which Iran is a part. But what I have found out is that with President Trump saying that there's a nuclear threat from Iran, I beg to differ in this sense, that when President Obama was in office, he had reached an agreement with Iran that their pursuits of enriched uranium was not to be considered as a nuclear threat. Since President Trump has been in office, he has rescinded that agreement with Iran. And it has been stated in the media and in certain news articles that it is yet to be discovered what nuclear threat Iran had presented at the time that America assumed a position to attack them. So those are just a few things that I have become aware of, speaking in a global sense, not limited to the borders of this country, that I thought I would bring to everyone's attention. So, specifically for today, what I wanted to do was just for 1 week cover world events going back from today to month of May, limited to the month of May, to May 22nd. And my source for all of this is Wikipedia. So I'm just going to share it with you. So we'll start with topics in the news. The Democratic rally led by Anita Demetriou wins the most seats in the Cypriot legislative election. American jazz saxophonist Sonny Rollins, of these events from around the world, the globe, around every country. American jazz saxophonist Sonny Rollins dies at the age of 95. In auto racing, Felix Rosenqvist wins the Indianapolis 500. A suicide bombing targeting a shuttle train in Quetta, Balochistan, Pakistan, kills at least 47 people. In association football, the Women's Champion League concludes with Barcelona defeating OL Lions in the final. Ongoing, Central Africa Ebola epidemic, Iran war, Lebanon war, Russia-Ukraine war, Sudanese civil war, and recent deaths, Gunter Humble, Joel's Top, Robert Woodson, Alexander Held, Peter Hollingworth, and Kyle Bush. In the matter of Kyle Bush, it was stated in the news that he had been diagnosed with pneumonia, which had turned to sepsis. So as a word of caution, anything that has to do with your respiratory system, it pays to follow the doctor's suggested treatment plan. And pneumonia does have a medical history of reoccurring, so it pays to take all of your antibiotics or whatever medicines that the doctor prescribes completely for the duration of the treatment. Going back to May 28th, armed conflicts, armed conflicts and attacks, 2026 Iran war, Kuwait in the 2026 Iran war. Kuwait Armed Forces says that they have activated air defenses to intercept a missile along with drones. The Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps says that it targeted an American base in Kuwait in retaliation for the recent U.S. strikes near Bandar Abbas, including yesterday's. Gaza war. An IDF air raid kills 10 people, including 4 children in northern Gaza, Al-Jazra. The IDF announces that it has eliminated Ihab Karizim, a leader of a central Hamas funds transfer network, in a strike in the Khan Yunis area of the Gaza Strip in Palestine. Law and crime. A 34-year-old Islamic State bride who returned to Australia is charged in Melbourne 7 months after returning from Syria after previously traveling there in 2013 or 2014 to join ISIS. She faces the Melbourne Magistrates Court. Disasters and accidents. 2026 Udamishi Girls Academy fire. At least 16 students are killed and 79 others injured after a fire breaks out in a dormitory at Udatamishi Girls Academy in Gingil, Nakuru County, Kenya, with 7 students admitted to hospital for further treatment. Wednesday, 27/2026, armed conflicts and attacks. Middle Eastern crisis, 2026 Iran war, 2026 Strait of Hormuz crisis, United States sanctions against Iran. United States Office of Foreign Assets Control announces under Executive Order 13224 that it has imposed sanctions against Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority, the newly created body used for managing the Strait of Hormuz. Tasnim news agency reports that the IRGC Navy has forced a U.S. oil tanker to turn back as it attempted to cross the Strait of Hormuz. Canada and the 2026 Iran war, Canada-United States relations. Global Affairs Canada confirms a report from Semaphore that Canadian officials in the Middle East, including the United Arab Emirates, helped American citizens escape the region during the early stages of the war. May 2026, United States strikes on Iran. Reuters and Axios reports that the U.S. military has launched new defensive strikes against the military site at the Strait of Hormuz that officials say posed a threat to American forces and commercial traffic. The U.S. military says that it intercepted 4 Iranian drones and struck an Iranian drone station in Bandar Abbas, Hormuzgan province. However, the U.S. says that the ceasefire remains in place despite the strikes. Gaza war. Both the Hamas and Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz confirmed that Al-Qassam Brigade's commander and leader in the Gaza Strip, Mohammed Odeh, was killed by an Israeli airstrike yesterday near Gaza City, along with his wife and 3 children. Syrian civil war. Syrian chemical weapons program, use of chemical weapons in the Syrian civil war. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons says that several chemical weapons from the Assad regime have been found in Syria over the past week. Business and economy. 2024 to present, global memory supply shortage, AI boom. Trade union members at Samsung Electronics in South Korea approve a long-term bonus agreement tied to semiconductor profits, averting a planned strike and increased global demand for artificial intelligence-related memory chips. Disasters and accidents. Rescuers locate 5 of 7 villagers alive after they became trapped for a week in a flooded cave in Zaosabon province, Laos, while search operations continue for the remaining 2 people. Health and environment. 2026 Central African Ebola epidemic. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus warns that the war in the Democratic Republic of the Congo could worsen the outbreak in the country. Uganda temporarily closes its border with the DRC and imposes quarantine and health screening measures following the spread of Ebola cases in Central Africa linked to the outbreak in the DRC. MV hantavirus outbreak. The World Health Organization reports that the number of cases of hantavirus linked to MV handius has increased to 13. The American Cancer Society announces that the Guardian Health Shield blood test, which was approved by the U.S. FDA in 2024, will be included as an option for colorectal cancer screenings amidst the rise in colon cases in young adults. International relations, South Africa-United States relations. The South African Foreign Ministry denies United States President Donald Trump's assertions as Afrikaners face an humanitarian emergency in South Africa. The statement comes as the U.S. increased the number of permits for Afrikaner refugees. Law and crime, corruption in Spain. Following an order from the National Court of Spain, the ruling PSOE party's headquarters are raided by the Civil Guard. The party's manager, 2 former senior officials, and a businessman are charged as part of an investigation into possible illegal funding of a possible operation to target the judicial police, judges, and prosecutors investigating corruption cases involving the party itself. Trial of Jeffrey Donaldson. The trial of former North Irish MP Jeffrey Donaldson for sexual offenses begins at the Newry Crown Court. 2 women allege Donaldson abused them as children. His wife Eleanor is facing a separate trial of the facts because she has been found to be unfit to stand trial because of mental health issues. Now we're at Tuesday, May 26, 2026. Armed conflicts and attacks. Middle Eastern crisis, 2026 Lebanon war, 2026 Israel-Lebanon ceasefire. Israeli airstrikes across the eastern and southern Lebanon kill at least 31 people and injure a dozen more as Ebola and Israel report intensified ground operations and cross-border attacks despite an existing ceasefire. Gaza war. Israel says it has killed the new military chief of Hamas, Mohammed Odeh, just 11 days after his predecessor was killed. Sudanese civil war, 2026 Blue Nile campaign. Sudanese armed forces announced that they have recaptured 4 more towns in the Blue Nile region following clashes with the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudan People's Liberation Movement, North. Business and economy. BP chairperson Albert Manifold is removed with immediate effect over serious conduct concerns. Uzbekistan resumes the export of gold in April with an export of in US dollars 1.5 billion following a 6-month pause. That comes from Bloomberg. Disasters and accidents, 2026 Longview, Washington implosion. 1 person is killed, 10 people are injured, and 9 others are missing in a major chemical explosion at a paper mill in Longview, Washington, United States. Guggenheim train collision. 4 people, including 2 children, are killed, and 5 more are injured in a collision between a train and a school bus in Budenhout, Belgium. 6 people are killed after a house fire in the village of Yurayakov, Amist Oblast, Russia. 6 people are killed after entering an under construction septic tank in Kalahandi district, India. 3 people are killed and 3 others are injured after an overpass collapsed in Seoul, South Korea. 1 person is killed and 11 others are injured after a magnitude 4.6 earthquake in Jhelum district, Punjab, Pakistan. Health and environment. 2026 Central Africa Ebola epidemic. The Bahamas announces enhanced health screening and possible quarantine measures for travelers who recently visited the Democratic Republic of the Congo, South Sudan, and Uganda following the Ebola epidemic in Central Africa. Canada announces a 90-day entry ban on residents of the DRC, South Sudan, Uganda, and imposes quarantine measures on some travelers following the Ebola epidemic. Russian Health Minister Mikhail Murashchenko says that Russia has developed a breakthrough vaccine for the Bundibugyo Ebola virus strain of the disease. The United States announces plans to send health officers to Kenya to open a potential quarantine facility amidst the Ebola epidemic. Law and crime. Mexican drug war. Mexico arrests Isaiah Martinez Sempeda, identified by authorities as the nephew of imprisoned former Sinaloa cartel leader El Chapo in Sonora. Trial of Jeffrey Donaldson. A jury is sworn in for the criminal trial of Northern Irish MP Jeffrey Donaldson for sexual offenses, which is to begin at 10:30 the following day. His wife Eleanor is undergoing a separate trial of the facts as she was deemed to be unfit to stand trial by medical experts. American football player Josh Jacobs is arrested in Wisconsin on 5 charges of domestic violence. Politics and elections. 2025-2026 United States redistricting. The South Carolina Senate rejects a redistricting effort to change the congressional districts in the United States of South Carolina before the upcoming U.S. midterm elections. 2026 Bolivian protests. The Chamber of Deputies of Bolivia approves legislation allowing President Rodrigo Paz to declare a state of emergency and deploy the military amid anti-government protests over economic conditions in the country. So that brings us to Monday, May 25th, 2026. And as follows. China in the 2026 Iran war, Pakistan in the 2026 Iran war, China-Pakistan relations. Pakistani military chief Asim Munir and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif visit Beijing for talks with Chinese officials as part of mediation efforts related to the war. Abraham Accords. Several United States officials report that U.S. President Donald Trump had asked Egypt, Jordan, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey to join the Abraham Accords en masse to normalize relations with Israel as he tries to negotiate an agreement to end the war with Iran, while Pakistan rejected the proposal. An Iranian delegation led by Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrives in Doha, Qatar, for peace talks aimed at ending the war. 2026 Strait of Hormuz crisis. Crude oil tanker Idematsu Maru arrives in Japan after previously becoming the first Japanese-owned ship to transit the Strait of Hormuz since the war started on February 28th. The U.S. Central Command announces that it launched self-defense airstrikes in southern Iran, including strikes on surface-to-air missile launch sites in Bandar Abbas and on IRGC Navy boats attempting to lay mines. However, 2 sources state that the ceasefire remains intact. Additionally, Mer News Agency reports that the situation is calm. 2026 Lebanon War. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that he has ordered the military to intensify strikes against Hezbollah. Sudanese Civil War, the FARC campaign, Colombia, United Arab Emirates relations. Human Rights Watch accuses United Arab Emirates of training Colombian mercenaries near Abu Dhabi, including a military base in Al Dhafra, to fight alongside the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces in Sudan's civil war. Around 21 civilians have been killed over the last 2 days in drone strikes conducted by the RSF at markets in the North Darfur city towns of Altina and Kornool. Business and economy. Economic impact of the 2026 Iran war. 2026 Iran war fuels crisis. Oil prices decreased by 5% in Asia early trading amidst hopes of an Iran-US ceasefire deal to end the war. The Toronto Stock Exchange S&P TSX 60 Composite Index climbs to 0.7% at 34,778.98 points, a record high amidst hopes for a U.S.-Iran deal. Disasters and accidents. 2026 Angeles City building collapse. The death toll of the building collapse in Angeles, Philippines rises to 4, while search operations are ongoing for 17 people still missing. 2026 Angola gold mine landslide. The search for those unaccounted after a landslide at a gold mine in Kanakasala, Angola, 3 days ago, has ended with 28 people killed in total and 4 rescued. A truck overturns on a highway in Tango district, Bangladesh, killing 15 people and wounding 10 more. A minibus crashes into a passenger bus in Mardan, Pakistan, killing 17 people and wounding 5 more. 1 person is killed and 17 more injured when a train collides with a truck at a railway crossing in Rogosuzno, Poland. Health and environment. 2026 Ebola epidemic. The World Health Organization warns that Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Uganda is outpacing response efforts with at least 220 suspected deaths reported. I think recently I read that there were 900 cases of Ebola presently reported. India's hantavirus outbreak. Spain confirms a new case of hantavirus in a citizen who evacuated from the cruise ship MV Hondias. Law and crime. Around 20 people are injured at the Ginza 6 shopping complex in Tokyo, Japan, after a man sprays an unidentified substance near an ATM, prompting reports of a strong odor inside the building. Politics and elections. Human rights in Cambodia. Cambodian Senate President and acting head of state Hun Sen grants a pardon to opposition leader Kem Sokha, ending his 27-year treason sentence while maintaining restrictions on his political rights and international travel. Mohammad Bahar Ghalibaf is re-elected as Speaker of the Iranian Parliament for a 7th consecutive year. Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye appoints Amadou Anamu Lo as Prime Minister, replacing Osama Sonko, whom Faye dismissed on 22 May. Science and technology. Internet censorship in Iran impacted the 2026 Iran war on Iran. 2026 internet blackout in Iran. Censorship during the 2026 Iran war. Iranian President Mossad Pezeshkian orders the internet in Iran to be restored, bringing an end to an 87-day blackout in the wake of the Iran war that started 3 months ago. Sports. 2026 NBA playoffs. In basketball, the New York Knicks eliminated Cleveland Cavaliers in 4 games with a 130-93 victory to win the NBA Eastern Conference and advance to the 2026 NBA Finals, their first NBA Finals appearance since 1999. They will face the winner of the Western Conference Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and San Antonio Spurs. So, that is your world news from going backwards Monday to today. So I thought that would be something worth doing rather than just give the appearance of only being concerned with what happens inside the borders of this country. So today is, according to the calendar, Thursday, May 28th, 2026. This is a sideshow. I'm Theodore Parker. That's it. Hashtag